Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us from. It's exactly 10 hours Zambian time or Central African time. You are joining me today for the Productivity Z360 Expert Talk. I am your moderator, Yvonne Kanenga Nawila, Chief Productivity and Quality Improvement Officer in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security under the National Productivity Development Department. You are very welcome to this expert talk, and we are very privileged to have you today. The Productivity Z360 Expert Talk is designed to bring eminent persons, specialists in different areas of productivity, sharing with us and how they leverage on different speciality of which these eminent persons come from. So today is that very special day when we are hosting Mr. Malcolm Shambana talking about the AfCFTA agreement. I will read it later on in full. Productivity is a cross-cutting issue, and productivity is a catalyst to economic growth. In the past presentations, we have tried very hard to bring different presenters across different sectors of the economy. Last month, we hosted the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Eastern Province, Dr. Lewis Mwape, who was talking about project management or agile project management and how it can contribute to productivity and economic growth. We have in the past featured different eminent persons who have brought out different perspectives of productivity, and this has helped us shape our productivity design of projects and programs. Productivity is about continuous improvement. It's a determination to improve. It's a determination to do things better today than you did them yesterday. It's about converting resources which are input into outputs, but efficiently, effectively, with optimum utilization of resources. It's about creating value. And so in our discussion on productivity, we try to see how best we can leverage different instruments, different programs that is happening in the country to enhance our productivity. Zambia's productivity is low, as you may be aware. In terms of the global perspective or regional perspective, Zambia's productivity is at 5.20 international dollars, compared to the average of 9.18 for the SADC region. So Zambia falls short of that average productivity for the region. In Zambia, we also do measure productivity for the sector. And when you look at our productivity statistics, you will be able to see low productivity levels, especially in high growth sectors or priority sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, among others, including the public service, which is a catalyst for public service delivery. And so as we deliberate on these different aspects of productivity, we want to see how best we can contribute to improving productivity in the country. So today is not my show. I thought I should just give you a background to what we talk about. Today's discussion is actually based on the African Continental Free Trade Area, the AfCFTA, which was launched in 2021. This is a transformative initiative aimed at creating the largest free trade area globally by membership, covering 1.3 billion people and a combined GDP of over US$3 trillion. The whole idea of this agreement is to ensure elimination of tariffs on 90% of goods and reducing non-tariff barriers. So in short, The African Continental Free Trade Area seeks to unlock intra-African trade, stimulate industrialization, and enhance competitiveness. So, for Zambia, how can Zambia leverage on this agreement to improve productivity? So we will be able to discuss the AfCFTA policy and its relevance to Zambia's industrial productivity agenda. We will analyze current productivity challenges within the manufacturing sector in Zambia. We will try to probably identify productivity opportunities that the AfCFTA can unlock through expanded markets and value chain integration. We'll also further explore strategic responses that the Zambia Association of Manufacturers should champion to prepare the sector for the African free trade agreement driven competition. So this is our discussion this morning. It is actually a 1-hour discussion. I will give the presenter, who is an expert in the subject, about 30 minutes or 30 to 40 minutes to discuss this, and then I will allow you to ask your questions. So to participate in this program, you have to subscribe to our Z Productivity channel, and through our Facebook page, Ministry of Labor Facebook page, you can ask a question, or you can ask a question on our YouTube channel. I will be able to read the questions and share with the presenter. This is interactive, though not just in terms of voice. Please share the link, share this information so that we can have as many people participate and leverage on this opportunity. So this time around, allow me to invite on stage our presenter, Malcolm Shabana, as I will introduce you to him in full so that you can understand the wealth of experience that he brings to us this morning. Good morning, Malcolm, and welcome to the Productivity Z360 Expert Talk.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss this very important and critical issue which we are in as a country, and is likely to affect us maybe for several decades. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are glad that you took time to participate in this program. We are very much honored to have you in this program. So I will go straight ahead and read your profile. So dear participants, listeners, so Malcolm Shabana is the head of department for the Master of Business Administration MBA program at Africa Research University, where he provides academic leadership and oversees the delivery of high-quality postgraduate business education. He is actually pursuing a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD, with Africa Research University, focusing his research on the African Continental Trade Area. His doctoral investigates the possible effects of AfCFTA on the Zambian manufacturing industry, with particular emphasis on trade competitiveness, industrial growth, and economic integration within the region. Malcolm holds a background in production management, having studied at the Copperbelt University, and has extensive professional experience with Zambia's manufacturing industry. Over the past 20 years, he has worked as an auditor for manufacturing business with several leading audit firms, providing him with a deep understanding of operational, financial, and strategic challenges faced by the sector. So his blend of academic expertise and industry experience positions him as a key contributor to both scholarship and practice in business and economic development in Zambia. A very warm welcome to our presenter with full of experience this morning. Good morning once again.
Good morning. Thank you once again for this opportunity. I'll begin with discussing, of course, the background, the brief background of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. As you know, Africa was colonized by mostly the European countries, and they left infrastructure which was meant mainly for their business, for their transactions. So it came to uh, people came to realize that they needed something of their own to trade within the continent. So that's how they came up with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which was, of course, signed on March 2018 and became effective on May 2019. And it seeks the purpose of the whole agreement was to seek to have one market in Africa where the Africans can intertrade, interact just within, so that they promote growth and with a combined, of course, GBT approximately to 3.4 trillion. Uh, from this background that several objectives were set, and knowing very well that Africa was fragmented, then there was a treaty called the Abuja Treaty, which was signed, of course, in 1991, which laid a roadmap to this plan to coordinate the whole entire Africa as one market or as one community. Of course, it has a background of regional economic communities like the SADC, several units like the ECOWAS, which still are existing and helping out to the standing of this institution. Several countries in Africa, of course, signed on the same date. They had the Abuja Treaty. 44 of those countries agreed to that, and to date, 54 countries have signed out of 55, which makes the whole, almost the whole entire continent, maybe I can say 99% of the entire continent agreeing to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area has several objectives. One of them is to boost inter-African trade, like how I earlier on mentioned. It wants to increase the trade among African countries, which is currently sitting at 15% only. It wants to boost it to about 80 to from 50 to 80%. That's the target. Also, it looks at the industrialization and the value addition. Remember, in Africa, we have been exporting so much raw materials without adding any value, and that has, to some extent, disadvantaged the continent at large. There hasn't been growth. Of course, labor, there hasn't been employment within Africa, because people who are working or completing the materials which are produced in Africa are somewhere else in other continents. The other key thing for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area was to create a single market. Like we mentioned, it's supposed to establish a single market catering for about 1.4 billion consumers and improving, of course, the employment level and the skills of the African communities. Also, to facilitate free movement of people, of course, African citizens amongst the country. Remember, at times there are even countries where you need the visa. There are all those restrictions, bureaucracy, and several items that you need to pursue, or you need to have for you to move to one country to another. Remember, the borders were just created initially by the colonial masters, of course, with the colonial interest, and the interests to some extent no longer exist and no longer available, no longer helps the African countries. The other item was to enhance global competitiveness, to allow Africa to stand on its own as a continent which can compete with other continents. That's the other objective of the Africa Continental Free Area. And lastly was, of course, to promote peace and stability, of course, by linking economies by, of course, mediating or reducing conflicts among several nations. The scope of the Africa Continental Trade Area, of course, it discusses trade in goods, which, of course, among the subtitle, among subjects among trade in goods is the tariff liberalization, which seeks to reduce the tariff for goods trading among countries from up to about 90%, and then also look at custom corporations, which also facilitate service provision among, of course, custom borders to reduce the bureaucracy. That's where we have been looking at having maybe one-stop border post and so on and so forth. It also looks at trade in services, of course, financial services, transport and telecommunication, and also as well as investment and intellectual property, which is under phase. The first ones which I mentioned, trade in goods and trade in services, were in the initial negotiation, but now we have phase 2, which is looking at investment and intellectual property, also as well as the competition policy and digital trade, among many other things. So tariff reduction, of course, 90% of tariffs will be eliminated, which implies that there will be free flow of goods from one country to another, and it will create more competitiveness among countries who are trading within each other. So it looks at eliminating for all those goods which, if we are trading with South Africa, we are looking at eliminating 90% of those goods coming from South Africa, or 90% of goods coming from Zambia. There will be at tariff, zero tariff. The other thing is 7% of those goods which were classified as sensitive will be, of course, withheld, and they will be subject to negotiation. Then there are also 3% which may be excluded entirely from the whole agreement. So that comes to 100%. So the institutional framework for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, of course, every institution has governance and governing bodies. We are looking at the key body there is the AU Assembly, which is as a political oversight of the entire institution. There is also the Council of Ministers, which looks at more like the trade policies and the administrative issues. Then there is also the Secretariat, which is in Accra, Ghana, which looks at the technical implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area items. So there are expectations, of course, of what the Africa Continental Free Trade Area will bring to the table for the countries involved, which is almost like the entire countries, 54 out of 51. They expect the growth of these countries, the GDP, and there is an expectation of serious industrialization, increase in value chain, value addition, and so on and so forth. There is also expectation of poverty reduction, which has crippled Africa for a very long period of time. At an average, they say 30 million of Africans will be out of poverty if this, of course, when this trade deal is fully implemented and fully effective. There are also opportunities which comes with this Africa Continental Free Trade Area. There is an assumption that Africa agriculture will increase, of course, to 60%, and its workforce will increase to those margins, and this can reduce, of course, the non-tariff barriers, and there will be an increase in cross-border of agriculture trade amongst member countries. For manufacturing, which is currently contributing only 10% of Africa's GDP, AfCFTA is planning to raise this to a very high percentage, maybe to, is it about 80%? Of course, all of their rates are coming from figures which are higher than 50%. So currently, the only items manufacturing in Africa are only contributing 10%. So the intention is to have a higher percentage of goods manufactured within Africa. There is also the service sector, which contributes, of course, in Africa, services are higher than the manufacturing. It contributes 50%, but still there is intention to raise that to about 80%. And mostly it's telecommunication, there's transport and financial services. There is also the digital economy, which you may come with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So African digital economy offers, of course, immense potential. Though it's still under phase 3 negotiation, which is looking at on e-commerce, and they could harmonize the digital trade regulations. However, after all these nice things, which of course are intended to come with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, there has been challenges, of course. There has been challenges, particularly in just from within Zambia. There have been concerns that Zambia, being a least developed country, may be put at a disadvantage since it can't compete with very strong economies, which I can cite like South Africa, Egypt, or even Nigeria. So the removal of tariff barrier will allow those stronger countries to bring in their goods and the services at a very competitive price, which cause them their, of course, advantage. They have low production due to the available resources, available equipment, high-tech equipment, which leads to them being very competitive compared to the Zambian manufacturing industry. So one of them, the concern also is that trade liberalization would disadvantage Zambia, since Zambia is landlocked country and doesn't have access to of course it has access to the sea, but it doesn't have direct access to the sea compared to other countries. So there are several concerns which have been raised. Besides that, others, of course, being is the issues of political instabilities among neighbors like Congo DR may disadvantage Zambia. So the several roadblocks have been raised, and it is at this point when Zambian manufacturing industry need to, I wanted to use the word wake up. I think need to do a lot of work, let me use that word, need to do a lot of work so that they are ready for this treaty which they signed in 2021, and already we are approaching 2026. And I don't think in terms of infrastructure, in terms of resources like capital, the Zambian manufacturing industry is ready. So there are policies already which are existing. There is the tariff liberalization and market access. Of course, Zambia has domesticated some of the provisional schedule of tariff concession, which outlines goods it will liberalize under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. In order to facilitate, in order to make it comfortable, we have the provisional schedule of tariff concession. And we also have this one was from the Ministry of Commerce and Trade and Industry, the revision of the old national trade policy and export to align it with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area goals and foster equitable market access. Remember, like I mentioned, one of the concerns is lack of direct access to other countries within the region. So there are policies which are being drafted. One of them, the same national trade policy and export strategy to align it. The other policy, of course, is the digital trade, which is, this one is coming under the provision, the negotiation, the third negotiation for Africa Continental Trade Area. Remember, Zambia is in the process of domesticating all protocol on digital trade and facilitate the e-commerce and digital business across its borders. And this is intended, of course, to support the digital economy. Besides these policies, there are policies which discuss gender issues and all inclusive policies, like the one for, it's called the Inclusive and Empowerment Policy. This policy which intends to empower women, youths, and people with disabilities. There's a policy it's actually part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but it's still under negotiation. There is also the industrialization policy, which prioritizes Zambia's industry, and its focus currently is on the initiative, for example, like the agro-industrial park with Zimbabwe, where they intend to be more like, it will be more like a market, a shared market with Zambia and Zimbabwe. There is also the battery, of course, it has to do with our production of cobalt. Remember, Zambia and Congo DR both produce cobalt, so there is also an agreement regarding the production of electrical batteries, which are supposed to be used in electrical vehicles. So this is the background of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and these are the concerns. So the discussion here now will focus on what are we supposed to do as Zambia to prepare ourselves for something which we have already signed. So there are several studies which are, of course, being conducted, but as you can see, the policy which I've read so far, they are not intensive on the on the manufacturing industry. They are more focused on the, of course, there is industrialization mentioned, but it doesn't look at yet the existing industry. What's the plan for the existing manufacturing industry? What's the plan for productivity and so on and so forth? So that's what I had to say for now. Thank you. Yvonne, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
for the marathon. Yes.
No, that was a very good background. I think it was very important for our viewers to appreciate the framework itself and how it operates and how we have operationalized it. So now that everybody has understood, I think I'll still give you an opportunity to now link it to productivity. So having this framework, having these structures that have been created, having these opportunities that are there, how can our industry position themselves to be able to leverage on this framework so that we can enhance competitiveness? And I know you've got strength in the manufacturing sector. I think it would be very good to get also lessons from the manufacturing sector and also just to position them in a way that they should be able to harness this opportunity that is available for us. I think with that said, let me again give you some more time to still reach out to the viewer.
Thank you for that. I don't know if you can, I was using my Bluetooth, it has gone off. I don't know if you can get me clearly.
I am getting you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Okay, so remember, we have 4 factors of production. We have the capital, we have labor, we have entrepreneurship, the 4th one, capital, labor, and entrepreneurship. So what we need to focus on is the relationship of these variables. We need to go back to the objectives of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Remember, it's looking at expanding the markets, and one of the effects on Zambia is that there will be some, of course, some advantages and disadvantages. So there is need for us to go back now to the factors of production. I would left out land. There is need for us to go back to the factors of production, which is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. How are we relating these four items with the objective of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? When we go back to the objective of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we need to have simulations showing us what will happen when the tariff barriers are, of course, they are taken to zero. What will happen to our country? What do we need to do to our capital for us to have to survive this? Of course, it's coming with competition to survive in this environment which we have signed to. And how much or how are we supposed to improve our labor? How are we also supposed to improve our entrepreneurial skills? What do we need to do to our land? Of course, when I say capital, I'm looking at infrastructure and equipment. When you look at developed countries, if we take a comparative, when you look at South Africa, Egypt, and those which we consider as developed countries, they have a higher advantage on the capital and capital, of course, equipment, that's equipment and resources. And they also have skilled labor. So in our case, we need to be looking at how do we leverage these items to improve our productivity. How do we improve our capital? That is our infrastructure, of course, even our land. The land, of course, is inclusive of course, of our water bodies. Remember, we have issues with our energy. So we need a model which can be applied in this agreement as Zambia, as the Zambian industry. We need to study the relationships among the variables and the set objectives. If I may just read back, go back again to the objectives, which is, of course, one of them is the development of one market. The other one is, of course, the improving of intertrade, the removal of tariff barriers, of course. So there is that idea of creating a single market, and we have to relate it to now our capital, labor, entrepreneurship, and land. There is that idea of boosting intertrade. We have to relate to how our capital, labor, and land will agree with those objectives. There is an idea of creating a single African market. We have to agree. We have to match it with what we have as capital, land, and labor. So there is a need for negotiation with other countries. Of course, the negotiations have already passed, but there is need for those who are coming in Zambia to trade in Zambia. There's need for them to have a position besides bringing in finished goods, finished products at zero tariffs. They can think of setting up a factory and bringing their equipment here in Zambia, where we are central. Remember, there is also the Lubito corridor, which Zambia, we are, of course, advantaged to some extent, being on the central position. So we're able to move things across the continent. We are looking at, say, things coming from South Africa. The industry is better set here in Zambia, of course, for it to easily move goods into Congo and Nigeria. And that industry, of course, besides bringing in competition, there will be productivity in Zambia. We can't do away with competition. Of course, as a nation, we need to learn to compete, and we shouldn't just be focusing on the government providing policies that advantage us at the cost of our consumers, the citizens. So there's need for that policies of understanding the factors of production and the objective of of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. I rarely get maybe a discussion or maybe even studies regarding the impact of Africa Continental Free Trade Area on the Zambian manufacturing. I'm doing a research on that, but very little has been shared regarding this impact. I don't want to go technical, but there are several modules which have been used, like in other countries, the computable general equilibrium module. There is also the structural equation modeling. All those, they need to be in place. We need to study as a country. We understand in what environment we are now sitting. So it's very critical that we do much of course, improving our skills, improving our capital, improving our entrepreneurial skills, and also the issue of utilization of our resources, land resources, which is of course involving water. Remember, our hydroelectric power, we can't no longer rely much on that. There are other things we can use, even the coal, thermal energy, and there also the electrical battery thing. We need to have those things in place and leverage how productivity can improve using the resources and agreeing those with the objective of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, since we are not running away from the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So let's master the objective of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, match it with our resources, then see how productivity can improve. Yvonne, I can't get you, sorry.
Sorry, I was hoping I could get some questions on the chat, but I don't have any question that has come through on the chat regarding the subject. So maybe just one or two, three things to follow through. I know you've talked about the entrepreneur, attitude towards Zambia's manufacturing sector. And I want to think that that's one of the serious problem or challenge that we are facing. Whilst opportunities are there in terms of how we can use the factors of production that you did mention, but to actually get hold of these factors of production and utilize them, transform them into value, I think there's been a challenge. In the morning, I was on the show called Mindset Change Program, and I was featured there because one of the youth developed a concept or is it a business a project where she's trying to help MSMEs in terms of entrepreneurial skills and also just helping them set up. So when you look at the framework, apart from those 1, 2, 3, 4, are there opportunities that Zambian entrepreneurs can find within the framework for capacity building, for purpose of enhancing their skills in terms of how they can enhance, this entrepreneurship, so that we should now be able to trade? Because without the entrepreneurship aspect, then trade becomes very, 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 very difficult. The other issue that you talked about, I think I heard, was the issue of competitiveness, or how we package just our goods and services. So we can now focus on MSMEs. Most of the MSMEs have not been able even to trade, even to sell some of their products to our neighboring countries here like Malawi. They just localized. So what is it that they need to prepare themselves as MSMEs so that they should be able to leverage on this framework, to sell their goods, freely, without all these barriers that this framework is, or this agreement is trying to remove? So maybe just those two, the entrepreneurship spirit from the Zambian manufacturers, then as well as also you look at the MSMEs, how can we prepare them so that they can take advantage of this framework, to trade? Because what I hear is that this framework is about intra-trade. So yes, how can our MSMEs participate in intra-trade?
Okay, they say that before you go outside, you deal with the internal issues. So basically, we need to look at our education as well. Are we getting the right education, which is going to suit the coming industry and the coming competition? So at personal level, let's look at our labor. Are they being trained, or they are using the same knowledge, the old knowledge? Because the world is moving so fast. 1 minute you are learning this, before you finish learning that, there is a new idea. So are we up to date with, that's the question, are we up to date with the knowledge and skills which we deserve to be in that competition? So first of all, it begins at the personal level. Secondly, there is need for collaboration with other countries. There is need for people at personal level. Of course, I need to relate with other people in other countries so that there is easy exchange of knowledge, because that's one of the objectives of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Once we are collaborating, communication has become so easy these days due to internet. I'm here, I'm communicating with the rest of the country, and the rest, anyone can access me. So there's need for collaboration, bringing in ideas from outside and understanding what those people from outside are doing. Share your ideas, mention what you're doing in Zambia and how you can intend to partner with them. If you are creating, let me say, for example, you are creating a business, you are creating a school, why can't you talk to people what's happening in Congo? Are they interested in what you are producing in Zambia? Then they need to, of course, there is need to understand the customer. If they're interested, that's when we are going to penetrate. There's need for understanding the customer through communication and collaboration with other people in other countries. You mentioned entrepreneurship. That's where you have seen a challenge. Yes, there is a challenge. There is a lack of innovation, of which we have to improve as a country. We have to find the several means of improving our productivity besides using the old style of manufacturing. Though you mentioned that these are the key things we have seen as a challenge, but what I've seen mainly as a challenge is the capital. I've mentioned about the labor and the entrepreneurial skills, but the main thing is the capital. If we can find a way of acquiring the right capital, what I mean by capital, I include that it includes equipment for our production. We include also, I can state, besides capital, we need the right labor, which I've already mentioned. We need to develop the skills. At times you might be found yes, we are able to read and write, but there is a challenge in developing those other skills. People they get good grades, they pass, but there isn't that aggressiveness, let me put it that way, towards entrepreneurship and maybe acquiring of the same capital. Even acquiring capital requires entrepreneurship. These factors are actually interrelated. So when you speak of capital, capital is interrelated to land, is interrelated to entrepreneurship, is also interrelated to labor. So there is need for us to have these in place, and the policies, provided they are linked to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area objectives. I'm hoping there are questions.
Okay, so maybe another thing that I would also want you to elaborate, because here we are talking about intra-trade and the issues of supply chains. So external shocks. So there are certain things that we can do internally here, and there are certain things that are affected by external shocks. So how can our entrepreneurs, our manufacturers, SMEs also may prepare themselves for these shocks? Because I know these would also affect their production.
Of course, there are internal shocks which will definitely affect productivity of Zambia, and the preparedness definitely, it has to cover. It's a concern from government to individuals. So it's a concern which has to be, there is need for government and the individual, the MSMEs, to be communicating, to be talking, to come up with a policy which will make them excel in the coming shocks. There is need for that. Remember I mentioned the Rubito corridor. There is a need for people to understand what's the purpose of that. It's a rail line going to Angola. People need to understand how that can liberate Zambia or make Zambia trade easy. There is need for partnership, SMEs or MSMEs communicating with government for maybe need for capital or maybe policies that will help them easily maintain their capital or improve their capital. So there's just need for further communication and further development of a structured system which you will see as they go through this whole agreement, treaty and agreement. There is need for that communication and coming up with the rightful policies. Remember, I read those policies. They are not really, I've read all of them. They are not really those relating to Africa Continental Free Trade. They don't hit the nail on its head, in short. There is need, yes, we are in that agreement, but there's still need for more people to understand what the agreement is about and what they're supposed to do. And that, of course, will come from studying what the current situation is, studying the modules and the models which are around, and understanding the effect of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Of course, we are studying that, but there is need for more studies as a nation, more collaboration of the Zambian government and the people, and there is also need for more education. Madam Yvonne, if you ask even around, very few people know that we are in that agreement. Very few know that we are in Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, and they don't even know the condition that it comes with. And some of them are actually even manufacturing, and they might even wondering what's happening to their productivity because they haven't understood the whole agreement. So there is need for that talk amongst of course, the stakeholders, the government, and the Zambian Association of Manufacturers and the rest of those who are involved. There is need for detailed understanding of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Although the details are there, but it's not being discussed the way it's supposed to be discussed and studied the way it's supposed to be studied. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very, very important and very fair comment. So it means that we need to raise a lot of awareness on this and prepare entrepreneurs so that they can participate in this international market. And of course, the first question a person can ask is that, are you ready? Like Harold here is asking, how best can we prepare local entrepreneurs to stay agile in the ever-changing international market environment? So that's the question for you as you are thinking about it. I was also trying to just look at our own infrastructure, because for us to participate in international trade, we first of all need to have very good infrastructure in terms of roads or transport, logistics, as well as digital infrastructure. Because this time around, I think the way we are trading is different. Previously, you just needed physically to move from one location to the other. But this time around, we can leverage on digital, trade. But the question is, how is our digital infrastructure to enable us, to participate in this international trade without any problem? But I also wanted to just appreciate the issue that you have delivered to talk about, the issue of collaboration and the issue of partnerships. So when you look at MSME today, I think in Zambia, we love to work in silence. Okay, we have to work in silence. So the more we work in silence, the more it becomes difficult for us to get this larger capital to reach out to this international market. Because I'm working on my own. How will I just manage on my own? But if we can have this culture of coming together, this culture of putting the little resources that we have together, then it would help us in terms of reaching out for larger markets, because I think this is what this is all about. So
Yeah.
before I go on with the comments that I have, maybe you can speak. I know you spoke a little bit to that, but maybe just to clarify to Harold, how best we can prepare our local entrepreneurs to stay agile in this changing environment.
Of course, it goes back to education and awareness. There is need for education and awareness of what these agreements are all about and what their impact is on their on businesses. It's not only looking at manufacturing; it's also looking at services. Remember, we're not talking about just the tariffs on the goods. We are also talking about tariffs on services. You might find that you have a barber shop. Somebody comes with from another country comes with a better services than your barber shop. What are you going to do? You'll be shocked. So it's beyond really just looking at goods. It's also at services. The best thing, it comes back to education. That's what I can say. Education and awareness. Let the people be aware of what they have been engaged, what they have signed. We signed as the government, of course. So you need to be aware what you have been engaged in and what its impact are. Of course, the impacts we can't easily tell just from we how many years is it? 4 years. We signed in February 2021. We are 4 years in the system, but other countries have already started studying the impact, and they are suiting themselves with what the Africa continental free trade area is about. So there is need for awareness, study, and education. Well, now, when it comes to infrastructure, there is a lot to be done to our infrastructure. Remember the infrastructure, which in my when I in my preamble I mentioned that we are coming from a colonial background. Even though we are in 60s as Zambia, but we still have the colonial infrastructure, and the purpose of that infrastructure is not really serving what we need. If you look at the railway line, it's vandalized, and then even the routes which were intended, they were just meant for exporting goods outside Africa, not within Africa. That's the infrastructure which we have. That's a physical infrastructure. When it comes to digital infrastructure, I think we still also have a long way to go. We need more technology to reach that. We only have in a country like Zambia, we have just a few digital service providers, a few internet providers, few telecommunication. There is need for improvement. There is need for more telecommunication companies so that there is a competition and the people are able to survive the competition which is going to come as an external shock from outside. If you have competition, you're allowing more businesses to come in and to be set in Zambia. Then you can easily compete with those businesses because they are bringing the knowledge from where they're coming from. They're bringing it and sharing it with the Zambians. They're teaching the people how the things are supposed to be done. Unless I missed out a question.
Great. I think that was a fair response. We can just add a few points to ensure that we prepare our entrepreneurs for this changing international market. I think, and that would be part of like my summary of the discussion, because it's all about availing ourselves. It's all about preparing ourselves as entrepreneurs, as enterprises as well. So when you look at that, you look at it in terms of skills, like you mentioned. So skills are very critical because skills will also enhance or enable us to come up with very good goods and services that are valuable that we can now also, trade with the international market. So without skills, then definitely we cannot have competitive products that
Yes.
are going to be acceptable, on the international market. And for this government, I think our viewers or our listeners should be able to know that government has put priority in terms of skills. And that is why 20% of CDF is going towards the skills. I think this is not an era of focusing so much on white collar jobs, but it's an era of focusing on the skills as well as innovation. What is it that we can do to build? What is this that we can do to build these enterprises or to build these products and services? So I think it's a call for a lot of research and development, because this is what is going to lead to innovation. But again, without skill, this is going to be a different story. If you've been following the Republican president, he's been talking about investment opportunities. He talks about them as the local people, and he's gone out there to market Zambia so that we can have more investment come. So the whole idea of this call for investment by the president is to ensure that we partner, we participate. I was very sad. I was coming from Uganda a month ago, and I came with this man who was coming to look for opportunities here in Zambia. And he told me that he followed the conditions that for him to invest in Zambia, he must partner with the locals. So he tried to reach out to one or two local people, but all he could get, no, I am busy, no, I'm not able to do this. At some point, they would say, no, I think send some money. He sent some money. They went quiet. They switched off the phones, and something related to behavior. And I think this is what is killing us. So the time that I met him, he told me that he managed to find Zambians of Indian origin who were a little bit more honest, more committed, and probably more resilient, and were able to fight, all these requirements that are required for them to invest. So and that is how he managed to come. So you see that most of the disadvantages that we have in terms of Zambian entrepreneurs, in terms of enterprises, border on behavioral aspects. The issue of culture, work culture, I don't know why we have just adopted this culture of lack of commitment. You start this, you cannot continue. The issues of consistency. So I think if we are to leverage on this framework, on this agreement, and benefit from all those trade tariffs that have been reduced or removed, the barriers that have been removed, we first of all must apply ourselves. We must have the correct mindset for us to do this. So these investors that are coming, let's partner with them. Let's be honest in the partnership. Let's also learn. There's this privilege of knowledge transfer. I think the call for investment from the president has not been the call of making these investors come and stay here for good. No, it's the issue of coming here so that they build our capacity, they help us in terms of the capital, and so on and so forth. But at the end of it all, it's about us. It's us. If really we want to penetrate into this international market. And I think we are well able, positioned as a country. We were landlocked, but we are now land linked. This is where we are. So since we are land linked, we've got countries everywhere surrounding us. It gives us a great opportunity to leverage on this framework so that we also enrich ourselves. It's a pity as we speak here, despite all the natural resources, all these opportunities that we have, the peace, the stability, we are almost at 60% poverty. And we want to attribute this poverty to somebody else, but I think these are individual issues. If we can also just leverage on the little opportunities that we have in the country, we can actually do better. We can create jobs. We can be competitive. We can sell out there. So, Malcolm, what would be your closing remarks as we come to the end of this very, very good discussion and very well
Okay.
enlightening discussion?
I would once again say thank you for this opportunity to share what I have had on the table regarding Africa Continental Free Trade Area. What we need to do is understand what Africa Continental Free Trade Area is about, and this suit in. At Africa Research University, where I am, we are currently studying a module of which in future maybe you have a chance I can present how maybe even it relates to policy formulation and all that. We are studying the relationship of the variables themselves, those factors which are involved in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and trying to understand the relationship through structure equation modeling, which I can explain later. Of course, I'm assuming this is not the last time I'm being here. Yeah,
It's not.
yeah, so there is a lot we are doing, and as a country, we need also to do a lot, study what it's about, share also with the people, the stakeholders. They need to understand what this is about so that they prepare themselves, because we are in this treaty for a very long time. It will be a long time. We are not running away from it, so we just need to be ready for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And in conclusion, from the Department of National Productivity, our role is to enhance productivity in all sectors. And part of the work that we do is to help you in terms of structuring your processes, optimizing on your processes, and also re-strategizing on value creation. So if you are in the manufacturing industry, we are here for you. In terms of how you can restructure your organization so that you are more productive, you are more optimizing on the little resources that are within your reach. So you can bank on us together with our sister institution called the Kaizen Institute of Zambia. We are in this business of enhancing your productivity. So this has been a very interesting discussion this morning, and it was my pleasure and honor to host Malcolm, who has diligently done justice to the discussion, and I hope you have benefited in it. If you are not part of the international trade, if you are not thinking of being part of it, please think twice again. You might be sitting on those opportunities that will change your life, improve your livelihood, as well as Zambia's poverty situation. So from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, from the National Productivity Development Department, we are happy and proud that we are part of this discussion. So let's pick up the next discussion next month around the same time, the first week, Tuesday, and we should be able to learn and grow together. All you need to do is to share this link, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can go back and listen to this presentation at your own time. So click the notification button so that anytime we go online, you'll be able to join us and to pick up with the discussion. So thank you very much for being part of this discussion, and thank you, Malcolm, for your time. We wish you all the best in your doctorate on this. Should you require any further information from us, from productivity, from labor, please feel free to reach out to us to support your PhD journey. So goodbye and have a productive week. God bless you. Thank you very much.